welcome to Conversations with CardFlight. I'm Derek Webster, and joining me today is John Shipley, the Senior Vice President of Third Party Partnerships at Clearent.
Hey, how you doing, Derek?
Welcome. So John, why don't we start, do you mind introducing kind of Clearent, the company, and your role within it?
Sure, not a problem. Clearent is a processing entity that basically we have our own gateway solution. We have our own clearing and settlement platform. They've been in existence since about 2005, and they did their first acquisition back in 2017, which is how I became part of the organization.
And do you mind sharing more about that experience? Because you joined when Clearent acquired Payment Alliance International's merchant services business, and it was, I think, two top 30 merchant acquirers in the U.S. coming together. Do you mind sharing a little more about that story?
Yeah, not a problem at all. Actually, I was part of the due diligence team, actually. So for about 6 months, it was a vetting process. PAI at the time, they were primarily focused in the ATM industry. Bank card or acquiring space was the smaller segment of our portfolio. So as they began to grow, they realized that they were not giving as much attention to the acquiring space. And Clearent at the time was in need of certain components that we had at PAI related to like a telesales unit. We had our own in-house technical support. So as the conversations progressed, it began to make more and more sense that an acquisition would be of benefit to both parties involved.
Got it. And can you share more about your background? Like, what led to the role you're in now? How did you get the start in the merchant services industry?
Actually, it's a great story. My sister. She was the one that introduced me into the payment space back in 1992. So I've been in the industry for about 28 years now. She hit me up one day and said, hey, we've got an opening in our deployment area, and it was for the welcome kit clerk. So basically I started in the industry from the ground up. And then throughout my career, being in a small ISO shop, we were eventually acquired by NPC. Mm-hmm. And NPC had a model where they had the national merchant chain presence, and we had the smaller mom and pop business. So it was economies of scale. A few years after that, then they were acquired by Bank of America Merchant Services. So my career has kind of evolved through acquisitions. I've got about maybe 6 or 7 underneath my belt that I've been involved with or a part of.
So with close to 3 decades of experience in the industry, could you talk a little bit about how it's changed over that time? Imagine things are a little bit different than when you were the welcome kit clerk.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot has changed with the industry, and the key thing is that I liked about where I started in the industry because I've been able to see a lot. The terminal strategy, the approach to the merchant support. In the days when I came into the industry, the Zon Junior XL was a prevalent device that was economically advantageous to the merchant. Debit Track 2 was a key, announcement. But now I've seen how the industry has evolved to where there's a lot more e-commerce opportunities available. The merchants are getting a lot smarter about processing and business costs. There's a lot more information out there about our industry. There's a lot more content, things like this, having conversations, podcasts, so merchants can get access to data more timely.
Got it. And you've talked a lot about mergers and acquisitions, and certainly you've been a part of a few, and then there's a lot happening in our industry in general. So since you've joined Clearent through the PAI acquisition, Clearent's bought a number of different, vertical-specific software companies and kind of moving closer to an ISV model than the traditional, ISO model. Could you share a little bit more about that experience and kind of what verticals you've chosen and why?
Yeah, actually, in like I said, in 2017, the first acquisition that Clearent had ever done was a portfolio acquisition, which brought over maybe 16,000, 17,000 merchants, as well as resources and people to kind of expand their operationals or their back office areas. The following year, we had an additional investment in our organization by Advent. When that came into play, it allowed us to go out and pursue software verticals. So we wanted to partner in specific market verticals that we hadn't previously penetrated, like Field Edge, which is for the HVAC or the field services space. We did Compass Max, which is in the dry cleaning space. So we wanted to partner with companies that introduced a vertical that we hadn't pursued before, but at the same time, we wanted to partner with organizations that their focus was the software, and that was their expertise, and our expertise was payments. So we can have a well-rounded solution and product that we can offer up to our direct sales channel.
So you've mentioned the involvement of Advent, a very large private equity fund. Could you share more about that experience in terms of, are they bringing just capital to the table, and what are your thoughts on either them specifically or private equity, partnerships more generally?
Actually, because I've experienced some of the different private equity investments over my career, I would say this has been one of the better ones related to Advent. The investment is there, the resources are there. They listen to what the direction is that we're going with the company. We've got some very solid board members on that team. We've recently brought in Pam Joseph, who's our CEO now. She's a payment industry veteran. They're helping us focus so we can get prepared for scale.
And what are some of the industry trends you're tracking most closely right now?
Well, right now, definitely cash discounting and surcharging is something that is of interest to us that we've been involved with. We're noticing that the small business owner is trying to manage their expenses because there's so much competition in this day and age. They're still trying to be relevant compared to everything that's going on in the Amazon environments and e-commerce and things of that nature. So we're trying to create a business model that allows them to navigate so that they can do the things that they need to do to reinvest in their business.
Got it. And in cash discounting and surcharging has obviously been a very hot topic, especially in the ISO channel. In recent years. Where do you see that going from here? Do you have any predictions for kind of how that'll shake out in 2 or 5 years?
Yeah, actually I do. I think everything is going to migrate more prevalently towards surcharging. Mm-hmm. Cash discounting has been available for years, but I don't think the attention of it was the same as it is today because everybody, again, is paying attention to their cost structure. But I think as more states allow surcharging, you will see the model migrate more toward that being the offered solution. And I always use the analogy when I'm explaining it to salespeople is that it's really no different than if you walk up to an ATM, and this comes back from my PAI days, that it asks you that question, or will you accept this additional fee? Mm-hmm. It's a surcharge. And if you say no, then you don't get cash. If you say yes, then you get your cash and you go on about your day and your business. So the consumer, in a sense, is desensitized to the fact that there's an additional nominal fee that's added to the transaction. So I can see that as a positive, and I'll continue to see it evolve.
So one final question. If you could wave a magic wand and change anything about our industry, what would you change and why?
I would change the dynamic between the issuers and the acquiring space. In our industry, there are different events that'll happen from time to time, whether it be a spike in fraudulent activity or suspicious activity from an e-commerce transaction perspective. But 9 times out of 10, you can usually trace it back to a card product. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when the card product is implemented on the issuing side without tracing all the way through the possible holes or gaps mm-hmm. or ramifications to the acquiring space, it affects the merchant population. And right now, it's heavily weighted toward the issuers protecting the cardholder versus understanding the entire ecosystem. Mm-hmm. If the issuers and the acquirers could come to one accord, I think that there could be some better things that could be done for the industry in this space.
Excellent. Well, John Shipley, Senior Vice President of Third Party Relationships at Clearent, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate you for having me.
Likewise. And thank you for joining Conversations with CardFlight. Be sure to follow us at cardflight.com, CardFlight's YouTube channel, or other social media networks. Thank you.